Welcome back to DreamHarbour, traveler. The harbour lights are glowing softly tonight, and the tide is calm against the old wooden piers. Before you settle into your rest, I have another story for you. Tonight, I would like to tell you a story called The Greenhouse Beside the Rain. On a quiet lane not far from the sea, there stood a greenhouse made almost entirely of glass. Its curved roof shimmered silver beneath cloudy skies, and its warm windows glowed gently whenever the weather turned cool. Around it grew rows of herbs, flowering vines, and small fruit trees that seemed to enjoy the shelter of its peaceful walls. And whenever rain arrived, the greenhouse became the most comfortable place for many miles around. The greenhouse belonged to a gardener named Elian. He was not known for growing the largest flowers or the rarest plants. Visitors rarely traveled to see his work. In truth, very few people visited at all. Yet the greenhouse remained beloved by everyone who knew it. For years, Elian had cared for the glass building in the same patient way. He opened its doors each morning. He watered the plants. He repaired loose hinges. He swept fallen leaves from stone paths. And when rain clouds gathered above the coast, he prepared for one of his favorite parts of the day: listening. Not to people, not even to music, but to rain itself. The greenhouse stood in a place where rain visited often. Sometimes it arrived as a gentle mist. Sometimes it drifted in from the sea as soft grey curtains. Sometimes it tapped lightly against the glass. Other times it flowed steadily for hours, creating 1,000 tiny rivers across the curved roof. Each kind of rainfall sounded different. Over the years, Elian had come to know them all. He could recognize the faint whisper of early morning drizzle before even opening his eyes. He could tell when distant clouds were approaching simply by how the wind moved through the leaves outside. And he could identify the sound of rain striking the eastern side of the greenhouse rather than the western side. Not because he studied these things. Simply because he enjoyed noticing them. Each afternoon, he placed a wooden chair near the center of the greenhouse. Beside it stood a small table. On the table rested a teapot, a cup, and a notebook. When rain began to fall, Elian would sit quietly and listen. At first, he had started this habit almost by accident. Many years earlier, a storm had forced him indoors while tending young seedlings. With little else to do, he had sat in the greenhouse and watched droplets slide across the glass. The sound had been soothing. The warmth had been comforting. The plants had seemed unusually peaceful. And so he had returned the next rainy day. Then the next. And eventually, listening to rain became as natural as watering flowers. The notebook beside his chair was filled with observations. Not scientific notes. Not measurements. Just gentle descriptions. Rain like distant footsteps. Rain like pages turning. Rain like soft applause among leaves. Rain like someone knitting quietly beside a fire. The notebook grew thicker each year. And still he continued adding new entries whenever a fresh sound caught his attention. One spring morning, a letter arrived from Melody Fields. The envelope carried no urgency, only a familiar warmth. The songkeeper often sent letters when a new season arrived. Inside was a simple note. The songkeeper had been collecting melodies inspired by different winds moving through the meadows. At the bottom of the page was a question. Have you ever collected the sounds of rain? Elian smiled. He looked toward the shelf where his notebooks rested. There were dozens of them now. Some old, some new, each containing countless small observations gathered during quiet afternoons. The question lingered gently in his thoughts. Had he been collecting rain all this time? Perhaps he had. Not in jars, not in bottles, but in memory, in words, in moments. That evening, rain arrived just before sunset. Clouds drifted slowly across the harbor sky. The greenhouse glowed with warm amber light. Elian settled into his chair. Steam rose softly from his tea. And the rain began. Tap, tap, tap. Small droplets landed on the glass overhead. Soon more followed. Then hundreds. Then thousands. The greenhouse filled with a familiar music. Some droplets hurried. Others lingered. Some merged into larger streams that traced winding paths down the roof. The sound surrounded him completely. Yet nothing felt crowded. The plants seemed to listen as well. Broad leaves gathered droplets. Tiny flowers bowed beneath gentle moisture. The citrus trees released a faint fragrance into the warm air. Elian opened his notebook and wrote, "Rain-like conversation among old friends." A simple sentence, but one that felt exactly right. Outside, evening settled across the coast. Inside, the greenhouse remained bright and peaceful. The next morning brought sunshine. Then another day of clear skies. And another. For nearly a week, no rain arrived. The greenhouse was beautiful in its own way. Sunlight spilled through every pane of glass. Butterflies drifted among blossoms. Bees visited lavender flowers growing near the entrance. Still, Elian found himself occasionally glancing toward the horizon. Not because he wished the sunshine away. Only because he missed the sound. When rain finally returned, he greeted it almost like an old acquaintance. The first drops arrived after dusk. He was already waiting. Tea prepared. Notebook nearby. Chair positioned exactly where it had always been. The rain sounded different this time. Softer. Slower. Almost thoughtful. It lingered gently on the glass before sliding downward. Elian listened for a long while. Then wrote another note. Rain like lantern light reflected on water. He paused. Smiled. and added a second sentence. Quiet enough to notice your own breathing. Years passed in this manner. The greenhouse changed with the seasons. Spring filled it with blossoms. Summer brought lush green growth. Autumn arrived with golden leaves and fragrant herbs. Winter softened everything beneath pale light and drifting mist. Yet rain remained its faithful visitor. Each season gave the sound a different character. Spring rain felt playful. Summer rain felt abundant. Autumn rain sounded reflective. Winter rain moved with extraordinary patience. Elian learned them all. Not because anyone asked him to. Not because there was a purpose. Simply because paying attention brought him comfort. And comfort, he believed, was reason enough. One autumn afternoon, a group of children from a nearby village visited the greenhouse. Their teacher hoped they might learn something about plants. The children wandered among rows of flowers and fruit trees. They asked many questions. Which flower grew fastest? Why did some leaves curl? How old was the greenhouse? Elian answered each question with quiet pleasure. Then one child noticed the notebooks. There were many more now. Entire shelves filled with them. What are those? The child asked. Elian looked toward the collection. For a moment, he considered how to explain. Finally, he smiled. They are my rain journals. The children looked puzzled. Do you study rain? Not exactly. Then what do you write? Elian thought carefully. Then replied, I write down what rain reminds me of. The children seemed even more curious. So he opened a notebook. Together they read a few entries. Rain like distant baking in a warm kitchen. Rain like blankets settling onto a bed. Rain like sleepy birds fluffing their feathers. Rain like soup simmering gently on a stove. The children laughed softly. Not because the descriptions were funny. Because they understood. Each sentence transformed a familiar sound into something comforting. Before leaving, the children spent several minutes listening to rain tapping lightly against the greenhouse roof. And for perhaps the first time, many of them noticed how different each rhythm sounded. Afterward, the greenhouse became known for something unusual. Not its flowers. Not its fruit trees. Not its architecture. People simply said it was a pleasant place to hear rain. Visitors occasionally arrived during storms. Some brought books. Others brought tea. A few brought nothing at all. They sat quietly among the plants, listened, and eventually left feeling lighter than when they had arrived. Elian never organized gatherings, never advertised, never invited crowds. The greenhouse remained peaceful precisely because nothing was expected there. People came when they wished, stayed as long as they wished, and listened. Years continued unfolding gently. The notebooks filled shelf after shelf. Some pages yellowed with age. Others remained crisp and new. The handwriting changed slightly over time, but the observations remained remarkably consistent. Small moments, small sounds, small comforts. One evening, long after sunset, another letter arrived from Melody Fields. This one contained a folded piece of music. The songkeeper had written a melody inspired by rain crossing meadow grass. Elian placed the page on his table and listened as droplets tapped softly above him. Though he could not hear the melody itself, he imagined it. Gentle notes drifting over fields, wind moving through flowers, rain joining the song. The greenhouse seemed to hum quietly around him. Plants rustled. Water trickled along glass. The world felt wonderfully unhurried. For a long while, he simply sat, doing nothing, expecting nothing. The years had taught him that some moments did not need improvement. They only needed attention. Outside, clouds moved slowly across the night sky. Inside, warm light rested upon leaves and stone paths. The tea cooled gradually in his cup. Rain continued its patient conversation with the roof. And the greenhouse listened, as all good greenhouses do, as all peaceful places eventually learn to do. Listen. The seasons turned again. Flowers bloomed and faded. New seedlings appeared. Old vines thickened around wooden supports. The greenhouse aged gracefully. Glass panes caught countless reflections of clouds. Wooden beams darkened with time. Stone paths became smooth beneath familiar footsteps. Yet the feeling inside remained unchanged. Warmth, shelter, quiet, rain. Eventually, even the notebooks seemed less important. Not because they lacked value, but because listening itself had become enough. Elian still wrote occasionally. A sentence here, a phrase there. Yet more often he simply watched droplets travel across the roof. No words needed. No descriptions required. Just observation. Just presence. Just the simple experience of being exactly where he was. And perhaps that was the greatest lesson the greenhouse offered. Nothing extraordinary needed to happen. No destination waited. No puzzle required solving. A rainy afternoon could simply be a rainy afternoon. And that was already complete. The years continued moving softly onward, like rain sliding down glass, like tea cooling beside a chair, like leaves drifting gently toward autumn soil. And gradually, the greenhouse became part of the rhythm of the coast itself. When clouds gathered, people smiled. The greenhouse would be glowing soon. When rain arrived, someone would likely be sitting inside, listening, perhaps reading, perhaps thinking, perhaps simply resting. The plants continued growing. The roof continued singing beneath rainfall. The windows continued shining warmly through misty evenings, and the greenhouse remained exactly what it had always been. A peaceful place beside the rain. Now, traveler, the story is growing quiet. The greenhouse lights are dimming. The teapot has been emptied. The notebook rests closed upon the table. Outside, gentle rain still falls. Droplets drift across curved panes of glass. Leaves glisten softly beneath silver clouds. The plants settle into stillness. Nothing needs tending tonight. Nothing needs finishing. Nothing needs deciding. The greenhouse knows how to rest. And perhaps you do too. Far away, across the dreaming continent, a melody drifts from melody fields. Somewhere, the songkeeper is welcoming another peaceful evening. The tune travels upon the wind for a little while before fading into the night. And here in DreamHarbour, the harbour lights continue their quiet glow. The sea breathes slowly against the docks. The lanterns sway gently. Travellers arrive and settle comfortably along the shore. As they always have. As they always will. The greenhouse beside the rain grows softer now. More distant. Its warm windows becoming tiny points of golden light beyond the mist. The roof still hears the rainfall. The plant still rests beneath its shelter. The chair remains beside the table, waiting patiently for another peaceful afternoon. There is nowhere else to go. Nothing more to follow. Only the comforting rhythm of rain. Only the warmth of familiar light. Only the gentle feeling of having arrived somewhere safe. And so we return to DreamHarbour. The harbour remembers you. The lights are waiting. The sea is calm. And I am here, as I always am, whenever you return. Rest well, traveller. May your thoughts drift as softly as rain upon glass. May your dreams find warm windows and peaceful gardens. And may the harbour lights guide you gently into sleep. Good night.